How good is Microsoft's affordable flagship Lumia 830? We're going to take a quick look and show you what it's all about. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Daniel Rubino here, Windows Phone Central, and check it out, we finally got our Nokia Lumia 830 in from Microsoft. So of course we're going to give you the full unboxing tour and give you a peek at the OS and give you some first impressions, of course. The 830 is one of a few new devices, including the Lumia 735 or 730, depending on configuration, that Microsoft announced at the beginning of September. And they're finally hitting the market now, which is not a bad turnover, right? That's about 4 weeks. So that's a pretty good announcement to get it into people's hands time frame, I think. Anyways, here it is. You can see a very thin device. We'll take it out of its little baggie, of course, and show you what it's all about. So of course I got the orange one, but I can always change that because this is removable. In fact, that's what this little tag is all about. So I'll show that in a minute. First, let's get to the box. Probably not too much going to be in here that's all that exciting if you've seen these videos before. Here is the battery, which is a 2200 milliamp battery. You see the shape of it's pretty different from the Lumia 730s, which was a lot taller and more narrow. Pretty thin, pretty good size battery life, not crazy, but then again, this doesn't have a crazy processor in it, so it probably doesn't need too much. We got the wireless charging info again, including the various accessories that you can get, because this device does have Qi Wireless built in. For those of you wondering, this is coming to AT&T, but we do not know the status of Qi Wireless, and that's a big mystery. So we're trying to find out, and hopefully we'll figure it out soon. What's kind of neat is Qi's built into this back cover, so presumably AT&T, if they want to be jerks, could just add a cover without the Qi built in, but hopefully they maintain the connectors to the actual device itself, so you can buy it as an aftermarket edition, which would not be the end of the world. It's still not ideal, but you know. Of course, no headphones, so you do get the charger. Now this is an international unlocked version, so that's why you get the funky Euro adapter there, and then your full USB cable, unlike the 730, which just comes with a AC adapter with a direct plug-in. Let's take a look here at pulling this off. So you do have a little notch here at the bottom, so you can basically peel this off, and it's really deceiving, right? It's bizarre how that comes off, because we're used to, say, the Lumia icon, also known as the Lumia 930, has a similar back, but you cannot remove it. So Nokia obviously went back to the table there and did some change-ups. So you can remove the sticker here, of course. It tells you where you have a SIM. That's actually a nano SIM, so in case you're curious and need to plan, you do want to go down to a nano SIM for this. That is the wave of the future, so best to go there. And of course this has a micro SD slot up to 128 gigs of storage, which is good since this only has 16 gigs of internal memory, which isn't too bad. But once you throw in that micro SD card, you can have pretty much as much memory as you want, and that's pretty awesome. And like I said in previous videos, with Windows Phone 8.1, you can install your apps to that SD card, so it really is just expanding the memory. Kind of interesting how the battery goes in here. Feels a little different, mostly because it's so thin. It just pops in there like that. You can see, of course, that camera. Let me pop this on. See how easy this is. And it's sort of like the Samsung cases, right, where you just gotta go along the edges and just clip everything in. It's definitely well done in terms of, like, once it's on there, it feels pretty solid. Like, there's no moving parts, it doesn't flex or anything, so that's kind of what you would expect. Let's give a quick tour of the hardware and what we're talking about here. So let's start with the back here, of course. Nokia PureView camera. So PureView, of course, is their phraseology for their high-end cameras. So specifically, this has optical image stabilization, and it has a pretty good aperture. It's f2.2, 10 megapixels, and of course you have a little flash there, just a little strobe kind of light. No xenon, of course, but still, you can see the design is very reminiscent of the 1020. As far as a camera hump, really there isn't one. If anything, that's just a little ridge to help protect the glass of the camera itself. It does have, like I said, optical image stabilization. It has 6 lens elements, which is what the Lumia 925 started with. The Lumia 920 only had 5, and they ended up adding a 6th one to help improve the clarity and sharpness. So that's on board there. Going around to the top here, micro USB and your headphone jack. So depending on how you feel about having micro USB on top, that is your only option. And of course, look at that headphone. The bottom is very clean, as are the sides, and you can see it's very, like I said, reminiscent of the Lumia 930 icon design. Coming over here, you do have your volume rocker, power button, and what everybody always appreciates, and I do too, is the dedicated camera button, which seems to be the differentiator between PureViews, right? So PureView devices get the camera button, non-PureViews don't. In a way, that kind of makes sense. Presumably, if you're buying this, you value the camera, and so you're going to want that camera button. That's not to say 930 or 730 users just don't value it either, but I guess I got to differentiate a little bit. Coming around to the front here, you're talking about a 5-inch IPS LCD display. You got everything on board with this. You got clear black, you got Corning Gorilla Glass, you got double tap to wake, you got glance, you got the super brightness, the super sensitivity, so you can use gloves in the wintertime. So this is like the full deal for a display. The one thing it doesn't have is, of course, True HD. This is a 720 HD display, so you're looking at a 1280 by 720 resolution. But if you've ever used Windows Phone before, you know that's actually not that big of a deal because stuff looks great. I mean, this is being sold as the quote-unquote affordable flagship, which basically means it looks like a flagship, it has some features of a flagship, but it also lacks in other features as well. You can see it's kind of booting up there. Speaking of, we got a front-facing camera, which not nearly as good as the rear camera, nor as good as the Lumia 730. That is a 0.9 megapixel camera, which is not that impressive. It's an f2.4 aperture. I'm sure it does decent, but let's compare that to, say, the Lumia 730, which has a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. Of course, they call this the selfie phone for that reason, and a 6.7 on the rear. It would have been nice to have a 2 megapixel, but then again, you're talking about jacking up the cost a bit, and they're trying to hit a certain price point with this phone. So there's an obvious reason why they kept that. Now, what's cool is if you are into the whole selfie thing, there is a Lumia selfie app on here that will basically let you use the rear camera, and it does an auto mode. It's actually really cool. So you just hold it up like this, and it has facial recognition, and then you'll hear an audio tone, and it clicks when it goes off. So you can actually use the rear camera for a selfie if you're really sort of into that kind of thing there. Looking at the bottom here, you got your speaker, which is always good. It's at the edge there, so if you place this flat, you'll of course clear that sound. And of course, you do have the microphone here on the back, which is really, really good. So this makes a big difference when recording concerts, since it matches the camera, and whatever you're pointing this at will do that. Speaking of kind of an interesting thing on the back here, they did this on the 732. They sort of highlight, some brand name features here. So you have Zeiss optics, which is part of that PureView, but other Lumia non-PureViews also have Zeiss. Qi wireless charging, Dolby, so this does have the Dolby Digital stuff on board. Of course, here's your PureView, mixed radio, here maps, here drive, Windows, and then of course, what's included there. Regarding the processor, so that's sort of the non-flagship part of this device. It is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 1.2 gigahertz processor. That is the exact same CPU as found in the Lumia 730 and also found in the Lumia 635, which I actually have here. So all three of these devices are running the same CPU. Now, before you kind of freak out, I gotta say, I've been using the Lumia 730 actually as my main phone all week, mostly just because I enjoy it so much. And it has been fast and fluid. I really have no problems with performance on this device. Even on the AT&T network, where it doesn't get full LTE, it actually has been performing very well. It's getting mostly HSPA+. So if you do want this on AT&T, I actually kind of recommend it. It's actually been a blast to use. But even at 1.2 gigahertz, it's been great. I mean, it's not as fast as a 2.2 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 800, of course, but when it comes to everyday usage, launching apps, and just enjoying the phone, I really can't complain. So you're going to get that same experience here with this device, and of course I'll be putting it through its paces to see actually how well it holds up. Now I'm going to finish booting this up, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at the operating system and that display. Okay everybody, we're back and the phone is completely set up and I've actually updated all the apps too. There's about 15 apps that need to be updated, mostly those core apps and some Nokia camera stuff. And I've been playing around with it for the last few minutes and I have to say this is one really nice device. In fact, if you're coming from a Lumia 920, I know this is a question some of you have. I actually have that here, although this doesn't have cyan on there just yet. I gotta still update it. You may be wondering if this is a worthwhile upgrade. Now on the face of it, this is an 830, this is a 920, different series. It would seem like the answer should be no, but I don't know. It's a really tough question. I'm going to actually have to say that the 830 could definitely substitute as a 930 upgrade. You know, you still get the Qi wireless, 9.7, was it, no, 8.7 megapixel camera on this one. Of course, you're getting the 10 on here with the PureView still. You get the better microphone placement and all that kind of stuff. And a larger display, 5 inches versus the 4.5. I don't know. It's also definitely thinner and lighter. You know, the Lumia 830 comes in at 150 grams, whereas the Lumia 920, I believe, is 185 or upwards of around that number. And it feels it. You know, 30 grams difference is significant. You do feel that when carrying it. I mean, I say that, and I love, even just playing with the 920, I still absolutely love this phone. I think it's absolutely amazing in its design, but it is rather thick and heavy. But the 830 so far has been proving to be just really good. It's pretty fast and quick. I haven't launched the news app yet because it's just got updated. So let's give it a sec there. And you can see it pulling down. You can see how fast everything loads on there. It's pretty decent. There go the headlines there. And so we can click these stories and you can see just how fast the OS is. You know, like I said, not as fast as a 1520 or 930, obviously, but overall, I think it's good enough to use. Now, I did throw my AT&T SIM in here, and you can see I got H and I get H Plus on here as well. So it is a pretty fast connection. It's not LTE, so if you are on AT&T, you know, you're probably best just to wait for their version. But if you really want the global version, this is the RM984, and it works very well. It's the same as the Lumia 735 that I have, and it performs great on AT&T. You just don't get those LTE speeds, but you know, I've hit upwards of 11 megabits per second on some instances, and that feels just fine. Other than that though, you got that nice IPS LCD display. And let's go into settings here and I'll show you what some of the features this phone has. It pretty much has everything. Like I said, you can go into display and you got your brightness profile and color profile. So brightness profile basically lets you set the default brightness, which I really enjoy because I don't actually like having a bright screen, and it lets you save your battery a little bit there too. You also have your color profile, of course. I set it for vivid. The IPS LCD is a little bit more neutral for colors, which is why actually a lot of people prefer it over, say, AMOLED. Having said that, if you do prefer vivid, you can of course change that here. You can also do cool and advanced, which lets it set, you can basically set it yourself by adjusting the color temperature, tint, and color saturation. So that is kind of nice. Other than that, sunlight readability, battery saver, brightness there is there as well. Of course, the device hub, radar, motion data. So this is part of the sensor core stuff. That is, of course, on there as well. That starts with the Lumia 6 series, so 630, 635, goes up to the 730, 735, and of course the 830 has it as well. You can hit accept. It's off by default, but you can choose to enable it or choose to clear the information. It's all up to you. If you haven't used motion sensor or sensor core before, what it does is it's collecting your footsteps, location info, and all that, and it can tie into other third-party apps, including Bing Health and Fitness, which is actually now MSN Health and Fitness. And it's basically, if you don't have a Fitbit, it works that way. If you're into health and exercising, it's also good for running and that kind of stuff. So neat addition to have in there. You also have the Network Plus, of course, extras and info. You'll see this has Lumia Denim installed, which is expected. The OS version is 14157, which, if you're following things, that is behind the developer preview version, which is 141176. So 157 versus 176. Of course, you can put on the full version of the preview and upgrade that way, and keep this OS even fresher. Still not too bad. Go to the glance screen. Of course, this does have glance. In fact, you can see it there. I don't have the weather stuff enabled yet. This just updated, and you can see always on, peak, and all that kind of stuff. And then there is the weather app, which I haven't been able to actually play around with yet. I have to actually launch the weather app, and it should show up there, so you can get that new weather forecast on your glance. Audio, everybody always asks questions about this one. So you do get your graphic equalizer. This basically has everything that you expect on the higher end Lumias. So you get Dolby Virtual Surround, Dolby Audio Leveling, Dolby Dialogue Enhancer, and Flip to Silence. So that's all on board here and optional if you want to enable it. So definitely a higher quality audio experience on this device versus the Lumia 730, which only has some of the stuff. Phone update, accessories, so all the rest is pretty normal. If you're in the US, of course, you can set your language to English US, and then you get Cortana, so that of course is on board too. One complaint I kind of have is the keys. They don't light up, which is could be annoying. It would have been nicer to have that experience. And I'll also say it does have haptic feedback, meaning that when you touch it, it lightly vibrates. As far as the vibration goes, it's very weak. It reminds me of the 720's vibration, which was also very weak. Some people prefer that. Of course, you can always turn it off even if you don't really like it. So I would have preferred a stronger vibration for the haptic feedback. It's a little inconsistent from like the Lumia 730, which I'd actually say has pretty decent feedback. For some reason, the motor on this one doesn't seem as powerful, so just consider that. Overall though, OS is very fast. What about that camera? So of course you do get the dedicated camera button, and we can launch Nokia camera here. So this is the Nokia camera, not the beta version. Now to clarify things, there is another app coming out called Lumia Camera that will replace this one. Now Lumia Camera has all the cool stuff in it. So that's the one I can do the 4K recording on the high-end devices, and it also gets HDR and a bunch of other features. Just go to WP Central, type in Lumia Camera, and you can see our hands-on with that. So this phone will get that app, but it's not until Q4, whenever that is. That's basically in a few weeks to maybe a month or two, I'm not really sure. So expect a faster camera experience with that app. Having said that, Nokia camera is actually pretty decent. I've had really good luck with this. Like I said, it's a 10 megapixel camera. You can see basically how quick it is there. It's not the fastest camera in the world, but in comparison to other Lumia devices, it's actually pretty, it goes pretty quickly. I really can't complain too much. It's on, I would say, on the faster end for Windows phones. And so that's always kind of a great experience. And of course you got video and everything. Let's go into the settings, because you may be wondering about that, what you get on board. You do get the standard stuff, set by flash, framing grids, aspect ratio, living images, of course. And then, of course, on the video, this is actually the bigger deal. You get surround sound. So this records videos with Dolby Digital Plus 5.1. So that was found in the Lumia 930 and the Lumia 1520 through the Lumia Cyan update. And this has it as well too. So this also should have the HAAC microphones, the high amplitude ones, meaning this is going to be a really good phone for taking to concerts. Like I said, you get that front facing mic, which should work very well. And you can record in Dolby Digital 5.1, which is pretty awesome when you think about it. But there you go, overall solid device. The only complaints I had, I said so far, were the haptic feedback. I thought it was a little weak, but other than that, it has been pretty solid. We'll do a full review coming up soon, and of course AT&T is getting their own version, which will have proper LTE on board, and so we'll take a closer look on that. No other word about in the US if other carriers are getting this. Verizon's getting the Lumia 735, but looks like a lot of carriers up in Canada will be getting the Lumia 830, so that's pretty cool. But head to Windows Phone Central for more information, and if you have any questions, ask below. Other than that, take care, everybody.